Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to our showcase session. Today, we are going to discuss about a testing platform extensively used for testing AI systems or artificial intelligence powered applications. We'll be talking about this tool in a few minutes. But before that, I wanted to take a few minutes to highlight a couple of challenges that we face while testing the AI-based applications. If we look at both the conventional or the traditional applications that we develop, like web applications or client server applications, or for that matter, even latest IoT-based microservices and so on, we generally look at the requirement documents or the use cases to create our test cases, and we know what are the configurations the test cases would be executed on. We know the boundaries, and we know what is the kind of exit criteria from testing. But when it comes to AI testing, for the people who are new to AI and machine learning, or for that matter, data analytics, I would like to share my screen as well. Coming to the AI systems development, the first step is acquiring the raw or crude data. And as you know, the data could be of multiple types. It might be huge test files or spreadsheets, maybe some audio files or video files or images and so on. And the data may not be in the right format that you can, use it in the subsequent phases of your development process. So you have to clean the data. In most of the, raw data, we have a lot of unwanted or missing data that might create some issue while, developing the model over multiple steps of the development cycle. And once the data is cleaned, we'll go for feature engineering, where the team would be extracting the characteristics and other attributes that they will be using to develop the model. Next step is picking up some classifiers. On this slide, whatever examples you see under each step might not be the complete list, but just for our understanding purpose, I have listed a few of them as examples. So in the classifiers also, the team has to pick up a couple of classifiers to take the model forward. To train the model, the next step is to train or optimize the model. And subsequently, we have to, once the model is trained and optimized, you have to evaluate the model to check its effectiveness. If you look at carefully, the train and optimization step and the evaluate step, a lot of effort is given to test the AI model that has been developed so far. And once the testing is over, the system is overall meeting all the expectations, it is actually deployed in the production environment. When it comes to testing such an application, which is AI powered, there is huge amount of variations in the environment and other factors. For example, testing an autonomous car, right? It needs real-time scenarios, the traffic conditions, weather conditions, and so on. So testing such a complex application will be very difficult with the traditional testing approach, as well as the traditional testing tools that are available today to our QA professionals, like the functional testing automation tools. They might not be able to help much in terms of testing AI-based applications. As I said, it needs the real-time. The environmental setup could be having an infinite number of permutations and combinations, which is very difficult to test and complete the test. So to simplify this type of situation, the challenging situation from testing standpoint, today we have picked up a platform called AIensured that comes from TestAIng.com. And folks, most importantly, we are blessed having such a great speaker from the industry, Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni, who is an eminent AI expert. It's an honor to have Dr. Srinivas in this session today. Dr. Srinivas is well known for his significant contributions to the AI industry. He comes with massive experience around artificial intelligence, machine learning, software engineering, as well as cyber security. He spoke in several international conferences. He also visits several IITs, and to his credit, He formulated more than 4 startups that focus around primarily these AI-based applications. It's great to have Dr. Srinivas today. Dr. Srinivas, welcome. It would be great if you can say a few words about your journey so far around AI, and it would be also helpful if you can give us a quick background on the tool AIensured and TestAIng as your company. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So myself, Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni, I'm you can say, the CTO, though we have a separate Indic kind of a role name. My role is called Intellect for TestAIng.com. In terms of my brief background, I somehow happen to be very passionate about the subject called AI. I've done my BTech, MTech, PhD. All my work has been in the field of AI. With basically starting from 1988, I've been in the field of AI. So done my PhD in AI in 99, then moved on to do some startups and AI startups in different areas. Been doing consulting, and then around 2019, we started this basic course on AI testing for testers. And this became the world's first testers course for AI. And it's called CTAI, Certified Testers in AI. This is quite popular. It is now popular in 10 countries, 8 languages internationally, different partners across the globe. And this actually is now taken up by ISTQB as the basis for AI testing. So we're going to give rights to ISTQB to take it forward. And since the last, you can say 2.5 years since we started this testing course for AI professionals, it's been a big roller coaster ride, and we got huge potential for this area, and we got feedback from testers saying that there's a huge potential. And that's when the tool TestAIng.com was born over the last 2 years with the effort of our team and my co-founder and the CEO, Vipul, who is also the co-author of this in terms of the testing certification, president of Indian Testing Board. And so he brings a lot of testing credentials. I mean, AI credentials, and my other team brings other complementary technologies. And our goal is to make the world a safer place for AI, so that AI is not viewed in a negative way, but in a very positive way, so that it is tested well and with good intentions.
Absolutely, sir. That's a great point you just mentioned, considering AI as a friend, as part of the overall AI journey, not as an enemy, and making this world a safer place with help of AI. Because AI is going to bring a lot of opportunities for all of us. Because everybody would agree now AI is there in everyone's life, and we do not have so much skilled or trained testers or other professionals in the industry yet. Thank you very much for that insight, sir. That was helpful. And also, in the interest of all the followers of our forum, I would like to highlight here, sir, the training that you just mentioned that was prepared by you and your co-founder. The link to that training is also mentioned in the description field of this video. That might be very much helpful for professionals who want to go for a certification course in testing, specifically in AI. So I have mentioned that in the description field for everyone's reference. All right, sir. So before we go and kick off the platform walkthrough, I have a question for you. Since you bring so much of experience in the field of software engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cybersecurity, and so on, how do you see the industry shaping up for all of us, in the near future? Specifically, how COVID-19 pandemic is influencing the digital transformation and other part of the industry at large. Would you like to share your thoughts around this, sir?
What I can say is, pandemic has done to digital transformation what decades of talk and a lot of strategy thinking about digital transformation people have been talking. People across the supply chains, could be in IT supply chain, like where people across the globe are working towards an IT project, or whether you talk about education supply chain, right, where you see global universities giving classrooms, Or let's say you're even talking about conventional, industries where, let's say, design process are involved. Lots of them have been transformed overnight to the digital. So you can say Corona has been the biggest pusher of digital transformation. Unfortunately, some industries have got hit, of course, like transportation, travel. But at the same time, what also has happened is the phenomena of technologies enabling digital transformation, right? Like, the whole 9 yards of online technologies, right? Like collaboration, or looking at technologies which can help in better automation of process, which can virtualize systems, cloud. I think they are becoming more and more mainstream. And I think it will yield an era where tomorrow even the work environment will be changing from the office to maybe hybrid. People will work from anywhere and anytime. So that is from a work perspective. But in terms of the industry transformation, I would definitely say many industries have now started thinking digital in a major serious way. And when I say digital, it's about adopting data centric thinking, adopting data based decision making, and also lastly, adoption of new technologies like blockchain, or you can say AR, VR, or things like IoT, along with AI. I think these are primary transformations which have been at the center of digital transformation. So I would think of it from a positive perspective that it's been a boon for digital transformation across the globe for enterprises who wanted to at one time digitize it. So even today, if you look at even manufacturing, right, it's talking about some concepts like digital twin, which is a simulation of same way people talking about in transportation, digital railroad. So there's a lot of transformation that's happening across the globe, across verticals in terms of digital ecosystem. I think that's been accelerated with COVID. That's a positive thing.
So you think pandemic has kind of accelerated the digital transformation in our favor in a more positive and in a constructive manner? That's a great insight, sir. Thank you so much. So with that, I think it's now time to open up our discussion around your platform. Would you like to tell us how do you brand your platform? What do you want us to call your platform? I might be pronouncing it not that correctly. Is it TestAIng is the company name, and AIensured is the product?
AIng is the name of the company, and our platform is called AIensured.
I see.
AIensured, meaning that we want to ensure that your AI is successful. That's the goal. So AIensured is the product, and TestAIng is the company.
AIensured. Okay? Super. Yes, sir.
So can I share my screen?
Yes, sir. Please. Thank you so much.
So I'm just going to share a few thoughts on what was the trigger for our bringing of this platform.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go into the overview of the platform and then with the demo. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely, sir. That sounds great.
Okay. So this is basically our company, TestAIng.com. Though it's recent, we have been fortunate to win some awards like emerging analytics startups to watch for. And we take pride in really looking at all of this as impetus to our work. So before we go into getting the product details, we all know that today AI is the new electricity, which means that there's a lot of buzzword, there's a lot of use cases, there's a lot of adoption of AI for digital transformation. So AI is the new electricity, as they say, but is it free of challenges? The unfortunate part, which is basically the critical part which we want to examine, is this whole concept of while AI is ubiquitous, but there are some bugging problems. Like in the AI deployments, people are talking about overall trust deficit. Trust deficit means people are not able to trust easily that the AI project can now take over your project and run with it. So with this kind of a trust deficit, there is a lot of gap between expectations and reality of AI projects. So these are primarily due to issues like lack of rationale, because we talk about, when we do a proper analysis of the application with AI, you get very complex models, but is it good enough for you to explain to, let's say, particularly young person whose credit card gets denied because AI model did not deem fit to find his background credit worthy. But can you tell a guy saying that your credit card is denied because this AI model did so? You cannot do that. So that's why explainability becomes a very important. Lack of rationale is causing a lot of problems in terms of being able to deploy end-to-end AI. Then we see a lot of applications in terms of AI which have carried around the biases in the data. And that bias is actually going to be reflected in really, the AI applications going ahead and displaying bias with respect to their gender and some other unwanted dimensions, which is a cause of concern. This has even gone to the level that if you look at some of the accidents, Amazon's hiring tool, which is gender bias, had to be withdrawn after spending huge amounts of money. So if you look at data bias and leading into model bias is a huge cause. Then, and where testing focus is something we find amazingly lacking in today's AI world is the concept of incomplete coverage. So coverage, as testers, we all know, is a very important criteria for determining how good a testing project has been in terms of what kind of coverage of the input data has been taking place. But here in the AI world, what happens is the randomized testing, which is done by typical data scientists, is good, but it may not be allowing systematic exploration of the input space via coverage. And that's where we see a lot of issues from inadequate testing. Then we also have some other issues like some of the new kind of security attacks which are coming up on image and other kind of data which are causing problems in terms of attacks on AI models. So overall, when you look at all of this, there have been several areas where AI has failed to deliver in terms of accidents, like sometimes it leads to loss of life, sometimes it leads to withdrawal of tool, sometimes it leads to withdrawal of a tool because it's been poisoned by content. So all of this we feel is basically the impact of non-rigorous AI testing. And that again is not to blame data science. Data scientists actually do randomized testing, but the randomized testing is good only to some level. You cannot test systematically for every aspect when you talk about testing AI in a random manner. And that's where we talk about a really comprehensive need for AI testing kind of a framework and tool which can actually test any AI application for diverse factors. Some of them could be functional, some of them are non-functional. But at the same time, one of the things which I wanted to mention to you is in the concept of testing any IT asset, somehow we are more careful when we deploy even a web-based application. We do load testing, we do application security testing, we do some kind of corner case analysis of those with coverage, all of that we do. But when it comes to AI testing, we just relate it to data scientists who say that randomized testing is what we do. But is that good enough? And that is where the industry has been moving towards testing as a first-class construct in the AI development lifecycle. And we feel that not only conventional aspect of typical things like coverage, performance are important, but in addition, there are some specific needs for AI systems to be tested, like fairness, accountability, transparency. And when you talk about testing for these dimensions, it is important to understand that we should be able to provide testing tools for these dimensions also for AI systems. So combining conventional, functional, non-functional, and the newfound AI quality characteristics, our platform called AIensured is primarily looking at addressing these aspects of testing for different applications. It could be for transparency via explainability, testing for fairness or bias, testing for security or adversarial robustness, then testing for privacy. If there's any leakage your model is doing or AI model is doing, leakage of any data which could potentially carry PII. It's a dangerous concept because from a compliance, this should be shot down because they will not allow privacy data to be leaked into models. So these are the high-risk tests we want to carry out. Then we say from a conventional testing perspective, we look at coverage, which is an important criteria. So in coverage also, we look at black box as well as white box. When I say white box, it's about coverage concepts like neuron coverage. We talk about the typical architecture of a typical AI model and look at covering that from a structure perspective. Whereas in terms of black box, we look at metamorphic testing, which is basically a very old technique in the world of testing, but used for scenarios where we cannot have test oracles. So here in AI, we don't have test oracles. So we actually use metamorphic testing to create pseudo oracle based metamorphic relations, which is what we want to satisfy, so that our testing can be complete and we can generate corner cases which are not following the conventional, coverage. At the same time, we also look at conventional approaches of what we call as performance. It could be during deployment or post deployment. We also want to test for inference whether the performance of the model for inferring to a client application is at the same level of accuracy as, say, it was deployed 2 months back, so that we can test for concept drift, which is a phenomena where the underlying truth in the AI model can drift as we speak in terms of deploying the application over several months. And then data sufficiency, which is basically related to the concept of data scarcity, sometimes is a big problem in training a completely accurate model. So our goal is to develop a, you can say, broadly 7-pronged framework. One is to look at transparency by explainability, another is to look at privacy, look at fairness and bias, then look at security, then look at metamorphic white box based coverage, then data sufficiency via data augmentation and linguistic analysis, then looking at performance as a metric for testing both pre-deployment as well as post-deployment concept of testing. And all of this we want to base it on typical ML work, automation DevOps pipelines called MLOps. So we don't want to create something which is off a conventional DevOps pipeline. So our tests are agnostic of the data set. We work with any model and any data set. Combinedly, we look at analyzing the data for these tests. So you can think of us as an audit framework which sits between when a data scientist develops a model and when it goes into deployment. So we serve as a mirror, as an audit framework for the stage between the two. So just to give a heads up on how these are carried out, I'll give you a small demo. Let me endorse the whole thing with a demonstration of what we have. So our pipeline works on multiple kinds of data sets. It could work on image, it could work on structured data, it could work on text data. As we speak, we're also developing a version for audio data, etc. So let's look at, just as per the specification, we had these tests, right? So let's look at the risk there. We talk about testing for transparency by explainability. So what our model explainability layer does is it tries to create a explanation of any particular model and see how the decision it takes is based on what kind of data is it focusing on. So if you see here, there is a misclassification where the actual class is 2, but it's predicted as 0 because there is a focus on this part, green part of the area, which is what is causing you to think that it is something, a different class. So what we can do in terms of explainability, I want to tell you that explainability is an afterthought. It's not like you can explain things while model is in progress. So only after model is developed, you can reverse engineer and tell you that, okay, what part of the data is the model focusing on? That is the whole goal of explainability, and that gives you transparency into the model. This one you can do either a black box, or you can also do a very white box based technique, where in a white box, our goal is to take, for example, this particular image and focus on what part of the image is actually responsible for that particular decision. So that is what this 4th diagram is showing. This is basically the focus area of what part is the model focusing on, so that we do not have to worry about anything as to why this particular model is giving this misclassification. So what we're getting with explainability is a thought of the rationale behind why a classifier took such a decision. And then next one we look at is from a security perspective. And this is a very dangerous one. If you look at this particular example, I don't think we see a very difference between the two images, right? But some poisonous pixels have been added in the original picture, and this picture suddenly becomes not able to distinguish between the original and the new class. And that becomes a huge source of problem. And this is what is called as adversarial attacks on images. And once you have adversarial attacks on images, these have to be tested for in terms of security. Because otherwise, if you have a production version of AI application, and this gets into some kind of an attack with adversarial poisoning, it may cause the system to break. So can we test for them beforehand and use that to make your program more robust? That's the main goal of security testing. Then if you look at from a bias perspective, we know that the bias of the model is a function of bias in the data. So we want to look at, is the data biased in terms of, is there too much emphasis given on one class compared to the other? So that's what we look at from the data bias itself as part of the checking of bias. Then from a model privacy perspective, we want to investigate how machine learning models can leak information about individual data records, right? Understanding if there is privacy breach by these particular models, which can potentially have some PII, which is compliance-wise, it's a no-no. So we can give testing of the model on privacy aspect as to whether it is leaking any privacy information, which can then be fed into any PII engine, which can say that, oh, it has a privacy part violated, or it doesn't have a privacy. So that is where we say that we can handle security, privacy, we can handle security attacks, we can have explainability and bias. Then from a coverage perspective, two kinds of coverage we talk about. One is what we call as the white box coverage, which is basically looking at your structure of your model, which can be a very complex structure called neural network. And then we apply some concept of coverage on that. And then we can discover corner cases based on white box testing of the model. Then we can also do black box testing, where beyond the white box, we can also look at generating what is known as black box testing, where we can actually try to do perturbation or mutation testing of basic data set and see if there are certain transformations which are leading to very low confidence in terms of the output confidence. Once you have low confidence or low accuracy transformation, that means that those transformations in the input have not been adequately covered in your model. That gives us a good set of corner cases. So you see, whether you do metamorphic testing or whether you do what we call as white box testing or whether you do security testing, all of them are basically talking about discovering corner cases in our platform. And that gives us a huge heads up in terms of the role this whole testing is all about. And this is exactly our premise, that if we can discover these corner cases in testing before deployment, it can really improve the overall quality and safety of the product. And in doing that, it can also reduce accidents. So the proof of the pudding, this is where the magic sauce also is. We can prove that our model works, is saying that, okay, we have given this report to somebody, but what use is it? What can they take action? So one of the things which we prove to them is that we can run a feedback loop whereby we look at the corner cases which are generated and we look at what kind of original misclassification was happening, and we can clearly show that all the instances where originally you had misclassification, like original class was 1, it was predicting class 3, class 1. But after retraining with the corner cases which you have discovered, and you've done the training process with these corner cases, our model is robust. You can actually now make sure that anybody who tries to attack with a poisonous attack, I can say my model is already trained. You guys can come and attack me. I'm already trained with what we call as attack vectors, so I know already. So if you're trying to fool me, I know already which you're fooling. I will be easily able to notice it. So that's the power of model is bringing. That you can detect corner cases and help you improve the overall robustness of the model by bringing a retraining phase where you can take those corner cases and train your model with these corner cases. And that is where we feel our premise is successfully proven, that any model will have problems when tested, and that problem cases will, when incorporated into the retraining phase, will improve the overall quality of model, robustness of the model, and being able to detect corner cases or attacks while in the field. So that is our premise. So same kind of things we are replicating across different other pipelines like structured data pipeline and text pipeline, and we're also looking at audio kind of use cases. So that is in a brief the demo of our tool. But as we speak, we are gung-ho that we want to be the world's leading AI testing framework for end-to-end testing of different aspects of conventional quality attributes and AI-specific quality attributes for AI applications. So I hope you got a good idea of the glimpse of our thoughts and how it's translated to action. We're absolutely model agnostic and data agnostic. Any algorithm you choose doesn't matter. We can bring in our model. We can act as audit on your pipeline, and we can deliver you this audit report. Then you can also suggest what action you can take to improve your quality of model. That's our promise. Thank you.
That was a great overview of AIensured. Thank you so much, sir. And I'm sure this session will help our testers to think in a new direction when it comes to testing AI systems. And also, this might be an eye-opening session for many of us who might be new to testing AI systems. Thank you so much, sir, for that insight. And coming to engaging AIensured as part of the AI system development lifecycle, how does it integrate with the overall pipeline? The way in DevOps or CI/CD ecosystem, we bring several tools and we integrate them as part of the lifecycle to make it more kind of touchless and more intelligent integration. So how does AIensured fits into the overall pipeline? Can you share some thoughts around that?
So what this one will do is, this is more related to data science lifecycle.
Right.
See, what happens is data science lifecycle has concept of model evaluation and model building. And that is where data scientists try to come up with a best possible model which they want to deploy. Where we come in is, we want to come in before the deployment actually happens, where we say that let the model which you have developed by trying out different algorithms, trying out different hyperparameters, can be come in as an audit and test framework. So it is like a new stage which is now emerging in the AI ML lifecycle. So it's not to be viewed from a conventional test lifecycle, which is already proven in, let's say, web-based frameworks, or let's say when you're developing apps. But in the ML world, let me tell you, people don't know what testing is.
Yeah.
So we're trying to educate them that testing is a pre-deployment audit tool, where your concept of data scientist role of testing, which is just taking randomized test samples and seeing how accurate it is, that's not good enough. So it's an uphill task for us, because it is like we're trying to bring a new beast into the data science AI lifecycle. Conventional app lifecycle, they know testing is required. But somehow in the AI world, they're not willing to accept. But now we're slowly seeing acceptance of an independent testing as a component of the lifecycle itself is required. Then the next level, how will you manage the tests? How will you manage the data? How will you manage the flow? And that is where our platform is built on top of an industry grade, what we call as ML workflow tool called ML Flow, which is a standard for the ML ops tier, which is a DevOps CI/CD pipeline for a typical ML lifecycle.
Got it, sir. Got it. Yeah, I got it. So this is during the, before the model is actually deployed, this tool comes into picture. And when we do different phages, data collection, data cleaning, then creating the model.
Those are all done.
Yeah, those are all done. Then after that, this.
So even model building is done. The developers or data scientists have already developed the model.
Yes, yes. They might have used that, 30%, 70% test data.
Yes.
All that stuff has been done now.
That is exactly our objection, saying that that particular notion, that 30% you keep test data aside, that randomness, that is the only testing I do. So I don't need any more testing, is what we're countering.
Yep, yep. Beautiful concept, sir. I'm sure not too many people are aware of this platform or this kind of concept, specifically in AI space. So I'm sure this is going to be very, very impactful piece of knowledge for people who are actually into AI and machine learning. Thank you so much, sir.
So there are some new thoughts are coming up. Some of the community members have started some communities like Deep Test. They are trying to come up with test frameworks like ours for deep learning. So now that even the data science community is starting to think about, like companies like Microsoft, AWS, Facebook, IBM, they're all working on these kind of tasks now. So realization is setting in that we need independent testing stage in the overall AI space.
Very nice, sir. Coming to the product and the professional services. So TestAIng into also doing in professional services or building solutions using this platform, or you only provide the product?
So the way we are looking at is we are looking at partnering with a lot of consulting companies. So we are in talks with at least one top 4 consulting company to be a partner. We're already signed partnership deals with at least 2 other SIs. So the way we want to work out is if there are partners who can build specific solutions, we want to be the engine. So to give example, there is one partner who's developing an industrial IoT based AI solution on top of our framework.
Very nice, sir.
Another that partner is trying to look at taking it to market in Europe. So our goal is to give the professional services to partners. So we may be there doing small product deployment, basically engineering for customization for this, but we are having a partner-led strategy. We already signed some partnerships. We are looking at more partnerships as we speak, especially testing consulting companies, testing services companies. We are willing to more than partner with them, expand their scope of testing and offerings.
Thank you so much for that information, sir. And I hope this session will definitely help professionals and even enterprises who are focusing in the field of AI systems development or in the field of data science. That was a very helpful session. So thank you so much again. And folks, that was Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni, who was talking about an AI testing platform called AIensured that comes from TestAIng.com. I hope you found it informative and insightful. Dr. Srinivas, thank you again for coming in and your time around this wonderful platform, AIensured. All the best to you and to your product's journey from here onwards from Test Automation Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and see you soon in our next showcase session. Till then, goodbye.